Hello, greetings to you all, and welcome once again to Gradient Tutor. My name is Afari Ernest, and today I'm going to take you through compound interest under business mathematics. So, in our previous lesson, we looked at how to calculate for simple interest, and we looked at how to calculate for the types and the time and the rest. But then, don't forget, when we were talking about simple interest, we said the interest is being calculated for a single year. So, every year or per annum, that is annually, right? So that is for simple interest. But here, compound interest, we are going to calculate for an interest for a year. Then we will add the interest to the principal to calculate for an interest for another year. So that one is accrued. Okay, so the difference between the simple interest and the compound interest is that under simple interest, the interest are not compounded. But then when you come to compound interest, the interest here, they are what? Compounded. That is, they are being calculated for in the various years. They are being spread on the various years. But then when it comes to simple interest, it's just per annum. So if you have, let's say, a principal of 100 Ghana cedis and the rate to be 20% for 4 years, under simple interest, you just multiply 100 by 20% by the 4 years. Okay, so it means you are calculating 20% on 100 cedis for how many years? 4 years. Okay, that is for the simple interest. But then when you come to compound interest, you are going to calculate for the interest every year and you add it to the principal to get the amount for the second year. So here, if the same question and the compound interest is going to be 100 multiplying 20% multiplying 1 year. Okay, then after you get the answer for this, you are going to get is it 1 2, so you are going to get 100 multiplying 20 over 100 1. So this one will cancel out this. So you're going to get 20 Ghana cedis. So the 20 Ghana cedis becomes the interest for the first year under the compound interest. Then you add this 20 to your principal 100. So you're going to get 100 plus 20. And now you have 120 Ghana cedis here. Okay. Then after getting the 120 Ghana cedis, it means this 120 Ghana cedis is going to be the principal for the following year. So you are done with year one. You are now moving to year two. So when you come to year two, your principal is going to be 120, not the 100. I hope you get it. So now you have 120 here, multiplying the same rate, which is 20%, times another 1 year. Is that good? Okay. So after you get the answer for, after getting the answer for this second year, you add the interest to this principal to get an amount for the third year. So when we say compound interest, this is compound interest. This is how we solve for compound interest. Okay. And we shouldn't forget some of our terms, the maturity value and the present value. Okay. So when we say present value, in our previous lesson, I said present value is the same as what? Your principal, and is the same as what? The face value of any money. Okay, so either present value, principal, or face value, they all mean the same thing. Okay, and you know, whenever you take a loan or you borrow some items on credit, the monetary value of it becomes what? The face value or the present value or the principal. I hope you get it. Yes, then don't forget the maturity value or the amount. And I said the amount or the maturity value is the same as what? Amount is the same as maturity value. And that one is equal to what? Your principal plus interest. So that is principal plus what? Interest. Okay. So don't forget these two. Don't forget this formula. Then we know how to calculate for the interest already and the compound interest. Then in case when they ask you for the compounded what simple interest, it means you are to add all the simple interest in that year. So if you were given 4 years, you calculate for the simple interest every year. Then if the question asks you to find for the compounded interest, you just add all the interest within that 4 years. And if you need the compounded value, that is the same as the maturity value. That is when you add the simple interest, you add all the interest from the years plus the principal. Okay, so once we start solving some questions, I know you will get it very well. Okay. Yes, so the compound amount is the same as future value. Okay, the compound amount is the same as future value. So we have compound amount here. Be familiar with the term so that in an examination, if you don't see amount and you see maturity value, it's the same thing. If you see compound amount, it's the same thing, or future value. Okay, future value is the same thing. Okay, so the present value is the principal, and the future value is what? The amount you are supposed to pay at the end of the respective year given. Okay, so let's look at um, how to solve some questions under compound interest. So for the first question, it says Robert invests 2,000 Ghana cedis for 2 years in an account that pays 6% interest. Okay, compounded annually. Compute the total compound interest and future value of the investment. So Robert invests what? 2,000 Ghana cedis. So the 2,000 Ghana cedis becomes what? Our present value or the principal. So we have 2,000 Ghana cedis here. Then for how many years? We have for 2 years in an account. So it means the time is also given. The time is given. This is the same as the principal. Okay. So the time is given as what? 2 years. Okay. Then that pays 6% interest compounded annually. So we have the rate here to do what? 6%. Okay. So we have to calculate for the total compound interest and future value of the investment. Okay. So one is total. Okay, we have the questions on our screens already. So how do we solve this? Now, like I said, you are to calculate for the interest every what year. Okay, so we have what 2 years here. You are going to calculate for the interest in the first year. Then after getting the interest, you add the interest to the principal to calculate for the interest for the second year. So we say solution. What is the formula for calculating the interest? And we know interest is equal to your principal times rate times what? Time. Okay. The principal times rate times time. Now we have the principal to be what? 2,000. Okay. We have the principal to be 2,000. So we know the interest is equal to this. Now principal is what? 2,000. So we say 2,000 multiplying the rate. Now the rate is what? 6% from here. So you can say 6% or 0.06. Multiplying what? The time. And the time given in the question is what? 2 years. So we are going to calculate for interest for 1 year. You see the difference. If it was simple interest, you just multiply it by 2. But then because it is compound interest, we are always going to use 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. Okay. So we have times 1 year. Now our interest for the first year, so we can label this as okay, I'll write it in the final answer. So our interest for the first year is going to be what? 120 Ghana cedis. So first year interest. first year interest is what? 120 Ghana cedis. Then we said for compound interest, after getting the interest for the first year, you add the interest to the principal to get the amount or the future value or the maturity value. Okay, so you are going to use that amount to calculate for the interest for the second year. So this is what we are going to do for the second year. For the second year, we are going to do same. Our interest is equal to principal times rate times time. So our interest for the second year is going to be, now our principal is not going to be this 2000. Okay, our principal is going to be the amount after the first year is what? Our principal plus interest. Okay, so it is going to be our principal, which is 2000, plus our interest, which is 120. So therefore we have what? 2120 Ghana cedis. And so this amount after the first year becomes our principal for the second year, which is 2120, multiplying the same rate, 6%, the same time, which is 2 years. Sorry, 2 years. So we are done with the first year. So we multiply it by 1. That is our second year. So this is 1 year. This is another year. That is what? 2 years. Okay. So you multiply everything and you are going to get your interest to be 127.20. Okay, 127.20. So this your interest after the what? Second year. Now we were given only 2 years, so we are not going to calculate for interest for the third year. But then if you were asked to calculate interest for the third year, or if you were given the years to be, if you were given the years to be 3, then you would have to calculate the interest for the third year. And that is when you are going to add this interest for the second year to this principal so that it will become the amount for the third year. Are you good? Okay, so since we are done, the question says compute the total compound what? Interest. So here we are going to calculate for what? The total compound interest. The interest for the first year, the interest for the second year, then we add the two to get our total compound interest. So we say total compound interest. Total compound interest is equal to interest for the first year. Where is it? So our interest for the first year, or first year interest, that is 120 plus the interest for the second year, which is 127.20. Okay, so when we add the two, we are going to get 247. We are going to get 247.20. So this is our total compound what? Interest. Okay, now let's look at the second part of the question. It says, and future value of the investment. Now I said future value is the same as what? The maturity value or the amounts. Okay, so for the future investment or future value for the investment or the maturity value is what? Your principal, the initial principal given in the question, plus all the interest for the year. Because you know for maturity value is what? Principal plus interest. But here lies the case that here we didn't calculate for interest once, but we calculated for interest for 2 years. So since principal plus interest is giving you the future value, it is going to be future value will be equal to your principal plus interest over the years. Over the years. Okay. So you see, you have the principal from the question already. And the interest over the years, we calculated for the first year and what? The second year. So you are going to add everything to get what? Your future value or the maturity value or the amount. Okay. Or the compounded what? Amount. So we say our principal here is what? 2,000 Ghana cedis plus the interest for the first year is what? 120, and interest for the second year is what? 127. But already we have calculated for the total compound interest, which is 247. It means when we add the interest for the first year and interest for the second year, we are going to get this. Okay, so there is no need for us to add the first year and the second year. We just take the total from here. So we say 247.20. Okay, you can also choose to write it this way: 2,000 plus interest for the first year, which is 120, plus interest for the second year, which is 127.2. Then you add it, you are still going to get the same thing. So here, when you add the two, you are going to get 2,247. 2,247.20. Okay, so you can either do it this way or this way. Your 2,000 Ghana cedis plus interest for the first year, we had 120, plus interest for the second year, we had what? 127.20, and still you are going to get the 2,247.20. So either way, you are still going to get the same answer. Okay, now let's look at another question. Let's look at another question. So one thing that you have to take care of is when you are calculating for any question under simple interest, here you are supposed to calculate for the interest for every year. That is, you need to introduce 1 year when you get to the time. Okay, instead of multiplying principal times rates times the number of years given. That one is under simple interest. But for compound interest, you always multiply it by what? 1. Okay. So let's look at another question, and we have the question on our screens. It says Alexandra invest 70,000 Ghana cedis for 5 years in an account that pays 15% interest compounded annually. Compute the total compound interest and future value of the investment. So we have the principal, that is Alexandra invest what? 70,000. So the principal is 70,000. Okay, the principal is 70,000, or the present value is 70,000. For how many years? 5 years. So we have the time. We have the time to do what? 5 years. Okay. Then in an account that pays 15% interest compounded annually. So we have the rate here to be what? 15%. Okay. Compounded annually. Compute the total compound interest and future value of the investment. So like we did for the 2 years, we are going to do same for this 5 years. Okay. So for the first year, we are going to calculate it. Our interest to be 70,000. We know it is principal times rate times time. So our interest is going to be 70,000 multiplying the rate, which is 15%, so 0.15, multiplying what? 1. Okay, or you can also write it anyhow you want it, 15% like this. Okay, so your interest is going to be, these 2 zeros can cancel out these 2. So you have 700 times what? 15. You have 700 times 15. Okay, so 700 times 15 will give you 700 times 15. We have 10,500. So our interest for the first year is what? 10,500 Ghana cedis. Okay, so there's our interest for the first year. Now let's move on to the second year. So we say second year. We are going to follow the same approach. Our interest is equal to principal times rate times time. Okay. So our interest is equal to, what is the principal here? 70,000. Okay. So we have 70,000 times the rate. The rate is 15%. No, the principal is not 70,000. The principal is the amount after the first year. And so the amount after the first year, is going to be our principal, which is 70,000 plus the interest, which is 10,500. Okay. So we have 80,500. We have 80,500 for as the amount for the first year. And so the amount for the first year is going to be our principal for the second year. So we have 80,500 here. 80,500. Okay. So multiplying the rate, which is 15%. So we have 15 over 100 times 1, because we are using 1 here. And so uh, you are going to get interest equals times 15%. So you're going to get 12,075. 12,075 Ghana cedis. And so this is our interest for the second year. Now, when we want to calculate the interest for the third year, what we are going to do is we are going to add this interest to this principal. So that will be what? The amount. Okay. Then we use that amount as the principal for the third year. I hope that is clear. Okay. So our amount, the amount is going to be 80,500 plus our interest, which is 12,075. Okay. So we have the amount to be plus 80,500. So we have 92,575. 92,575. So this is our amount after the second year. So if we want to calculate the interest for the third year, then we use this as what? Our principal. Okay. So let's calculate for the interest for the third year. So that is going to be the same approach. That is your interest equals principal times rate times time. So your interest here is equal to, your principal is going to be the amount, not the previous principal. So 92,575 multiplying, the rate is 15%, right? So 0.15 times 1. Okay. So our interest is equal to times 0.15. So we have 13,886. 13,886.25. Okay. So 0.25. There's our interest after the third year. Okay. So our interest for the third year. So if we want to calculate for the interest for the fourth year, then it means we have to add this interest to this principal, so that will be amount. Then we send the amount to the fourth year as the principal. So we say amount after the third year is equal to our principal, which is 92,575 plus our interest, which is 13,886.25. Okay. So when you add the two, 92 575. So you are going to get 106,000 461.25. Okay. So this is your amount after the third year. So this amount will serve as the principal for the fourth year. Then after getting the interest for the fourth year, you add it to the principal to get to the principal for the fifth year. So I will end at the third year so that you continue the fourth year and the fifth year. But then after getting the interest for the fifth year, you add the total compound interest and you give me the answer at the comment section, and also the future value, that is the principal in the question plus all the interest for the first year, interest for the second year, and interest for what the third year, and interest for the fourth year, and interest for what the fifth year. So you sum all of them and you provide me the answer. So when you are providing the answer, this is how you are going to do it. The total compound interest. Okay, so compound interest for the 5 years. So you are continuing with the 2 years, then you give me the compound interest. So the compound interest, then you bring your equal sign, you state the amount there, then you also say your future value. Okay, the future value. Then you bring your equal sign, you state the amount there. So I will just come and verify it for you. Okay, so now that we are done with the normal way of calculating our compound interest, we are going to look at how to compute for future value. Okay, how to compute for future value. It is not different from this, but the only difference between the this first one and the one that you are going to do is, you see, this one, the rate was given in what? It was given per what? Annum. Do you get it? This rate is for what? Every year. That is why when we are calculating for the compound interest, you see we just multiply the rate by what? 1 year. Okay. Then let's look at this. In a situation whereby the rate is given, but the rate is given semi-annually, or the rate is given what? Monthly. The rate is given quarterly. Then how are we going to do it? That is what we are going to do in our next what subtopic. Okay, so let's quickly run through it. It's very short and we'll just finish with it. Okay. So we are going to look at what? Computing future value. Computing future value. Okay. It's a little bit tricky, so you pay attention to it very well. Okay, so for the when you are computing future value, there is the formula. Future value equals your present value, or the principal, multiplying future value factor. Okay, so that is 1 plus r exponent n. Okay, so that is the future value factor. Then this, the FV means what? Future value. This PV represents what? Present value, right? Then this R represents what? The rate, and the N here represents the number of years given in the question. Okay. So for example, the question given to us about Alexandra, who invested 70,000 for 5 years in an account that pays 15% simple interest. 15% interest compounded annually. Sorry, not simple interest. So we have our future value. So if you want to calculate for the future value for that 5 years, you can calculate for it. It's very simple here. Future value is equal to, now what is the principal in the question? It was given to us as what? 70,000. Okay. Multiplying what? 1 plus r. So 1 plus, what is the rate? The rate 15%. So you can say 0.15. Okay. Exponent n. and the n refers to the number of years. So we have what, 5 years here. That is all. Then you input everything into the calculator to get your final what answer. Okay, so that is what. So when you use this method, you are going to get the final answer, the future value that you were looking for. You are going to get it this way. Then after getting the future value, if you want the total compound interest, what you do is just subtract the principal from the future value, and that is all. You get the total compound interest. Okay, so we will be looking at that. We'll be looking at that. That's just by the way. So that is our present value, 1 plus r exponent n. Okay, and we are going to look at how to determine the number of compounding periods and periodic what rates. Okay, so when we say compounding period, compounding period, compounding period, here we mean the number of times they are going to, or the bank or any the one taking the money, the number of times the person is supposed to compound what the loan. So if you are going to compound a loan, you check, is it talking about annually? If it is talking about annually, if you give me a loan for 1 year and you tell me the loan is going to be compounded annually, it means the whole year I'm supposed to calculate for the interest once. Okay, but then if you tell me you are giving me a loan and I'm supposed to compound the loan semi-annually, it means the money that you are giving to me, I'm supposed to calculate for the interest for that money 2 times in a year. So it means for the first 6 months I will calculate interest on that, then for second 6 months too I'll calculate interest on that. So that is semi-annually. Okay, so annually means once a year, right? Once a year. Here we mean, you see, compound interest, I told you we always calculate it within a single year. Okay, just 1 year. Okay, so semi-annually here is talking about how many times in a year. Okay, so it is going to be twice a year. Okay, twice a year. So it means if you give me a loan and I am to compound it semi-annually, I have to calculate for the interest for that loan twice what a year. That is every 6 months. So if you don't see semi-annually, you see what every 6 months. Okay, then we also have quarterly. Quarterly. Now when we say quarterly, quarter means what? Out of 4. So that is 1/4. So it means the whole year we have divided the year by what? 4. Okay, a single year, and we have divided it by what? 4. So we have 12 months in the year. So when you divide the 12 months by 4, you are going to get what? 3. So it means if you give me a loan and you tell me I am supposed to compound the loan quarterly, it means I'm supposed to calculate the interest for the loan every what? 3 months. So quarterly is the same as what? Every, or let me write 4 times in a year. 4 times in a year. And 4 times in a year is the same as what? Every 3 months. Every 3 months. Okay. So and the last one is what? Monthly. Okay, monthly. So you know, for monthly, we have 12 months in a year. So if you give me a loan and you tell me I'm supposed to compound the loan monthly, it means I'm supposed to calculate the interest on the loan every month. So at the end, I'm going to calculate for the interest 12 times in a year. I hope you get it. So for the monthly, it's equal to what? 12 times in a year. So 12 times in a year. Okay, so that is what we are going to look at. So when we say the compounding period, that is what you see here. Okay, so in a question, if they give you or if you see a question whereby the loan is compounded semi-annually, it means the loan is compounded what? Twice in a year. Okay. Then let's look at the last thing, that is the periodic what? Rates. The periodic rates. Periodic rates. So for periodic rates, what do we mean? We are saying the rate for a certain period of time, or the rate for the number of compounding period. Now, a question can be given to you, and the rate, they will give you the rate what? An annual rate. They will give you annual rate. Annual rate equal to, the annual rate is equal to, let's say, 10%. The annual rate here means what? This rate is for what? The whole year. Okay, this rate is for the whole year. And now, if they tell you the loan is compounded what? Semi-annually, just look at it. They have given you annual rates. It means the rate is for the whole year. But then they are saying the loan is compounded what? Semi-annually. It means you are supposed to calculate the loan what? Twice in a year. Now, if you want to calculate the loan, you are not supposed to use this 10%, because this 10% is for the whole year. And if you are going to calculate for the loan every 6 months, it means you have to get the rate for the 6 months, the first 6 months, and the rate for what? The second 6 months. I hope you get it. And so, if this rate is for the whole year and we want the periodic rate for semi-annual or semi-annual periodic rate, here you are supposed to say 10% divided by what? 2. Because semi-annual means we are going to calculate the loan what? Twice in a year. And you have given me the rate for the whole year. So if I want to calculate the interest for the first 6 months, I can't use the rate for the whole year, but then I have to get interest rate for the first 6 months. And so that is where you divide the 10% by what? 2 to get 5%. So it means if you want to calculate the loan for the first 6 months, you have to use what? 5%. Then when you get to the second 6 months, you have to also use what? 5%. So that at the end, the whole year will be what? 10%. I hope you get it. Then let's look at another example. They can give you an annual rate to be, let's say, 20%. Then the loan is compounded what? Quarterly. It means the loan is compounded 4 times in a year. The loan is compounded 4 times in a year means I'm supposed to calculate for the interest on the loan 4 times in a year. So it means every 3 months I'm supposed to calculate for the interest. Now you have given me an annual rate, interest for the whole the rate for the whole year. So if I want to get the rate for every 3 months, then it means I would have to divide this 20% by the number of times I will compound the loan in the year. And how many times? 4 times in a year. Okay, every 3 months means what? 4 times in a year. So I will just divide it by 4 to get what? 5%. So it means for the first 3 months, January, February, March, if you are calculating for the interest on the loan, you have to use what? 5%. Then when you get to the next 3 months, which is April, May, June, you have to use what? 5%. Then July, August, September, you have to use 5%. October, November, December, you use 5%. Okay, so that the whole year you will get what? The 20% annual rate. I hope you get it. So that is what we call the periodic what? Rate. So this is the compounding period, and this is what? Periodic rate. So now let's pick a question and look at how to solve these questions. Okay, so there is a formula for the periodic rate, and that is your rate over the number of compounding period, which is n, right? M. I think it is denoted by the letter M. Okay, so that is equal to 1 because it is for the whole a single year, right? So it is R over what? M, and this R here is your periodic rate, and this M here is the compounding period here. So you just divide it, and the answer that you get becomes your what? The that one becomes your periodic rate, Yes. So let's pick a question here and look at how to solve them. Okay, so the first question says find the number of periods n of a loan. It is if a loan is compounded annually for 5 years. So find the number of periods of a loan. Sorry, it is if a loan is compounded annually for what? 5 years. So the loan is compounded annually. So for 5 years, the loan is compounded annually. They are looking for how many times are we supposed to calculate for the interest. How many times are we supposed to compound what? The loan. Now you are saying the loan is compounded annually. It means we calculate for the interest for the loan each year, right? So annually here means what? Every year you calculate for just a single interest. Do you get it? So you are going to get once in a year multiplying the whole 5 years. So you are going to get 5 times. Okay. So it means for the whole 5 years, you are going to calculate the interest how many times? 5 times. Okay. You are going to compound the loan 5. Okay. Let's look at another question. Calculate the number of periods of a loan compounded semi-annually for what? 7 years. So compounded semi-annually. 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 For what? 7 years. For 7 years. So you see there is what? Semi-annually here. Right? So semi-annually here means what? That particular year or in a single year, we are supposed to compound the loan what? Twice. So it means each and every year we are going to calculate for the interest 2 times. Okay. Then after calculating for the interest 2 times, we will multiply it by the whole 7 years. So if it is 7 years, each year we will calculate for the interest what? 2. So 2 times 7 to get what? 14. So it means you are going to compound the loan what? 14 times. Okay. 14 times. So first look out for the period, semi-annual, right? Semi-annual means what? 2. Then you write your 2. Then you multiply it by the number of years. Annually means what? 1. Then you multiply it by the number of years. Then calculate the number of periods of a loan compounded every 3 months for 2 years. So here they are saying every 3 months for what? 2 years. Now, when we say every 3 months, what do we mean? We mean what? Quarterly. So, how many 3 months do we have in a year? That is 4. Okay. So, we are going to calculate for the interest or compound the loan 4 times in a year. Then we multiply it by the number of years we are dealing with. That is 2. So, we are going to get what? 8 times. Okay. So, if I tell you you are to calculate for the number of compounding periods for a loan compounded what? Monthly for 4 years. So monthly for what? 4 years. How are you going to do it? You know, monthly is what? In a year we have 12 months. So monthly means what? That particular year we are going to calculate for the interest what? 12 times in the year. Okay. So in a single year, how many times are we compounded? If it is monthly, that is 12 times in a single year. Then we multiply it by the number of years we are looking for. So 12 times, 4 times 12 is 48. Okay, so that is 48 times. So it means you will calculate for the interest 48 times. If you borrow if you borrow money from someone and you are giving this, let's say, deal or agreement or terms, you are supposed to calculate for the interest 48 what times. Okay, so this is how to calculate for the compounding periods. Okay, now let's look at how to also calculate for periodic rates. Okay, let's look at some of the questions on how to calculate for periodic rates. Then we will combine the two and look at how to calculate for them under compound interest. Okay, and that will be all. So find the periodic rates of find the periodic rate of a loan compounded annually with an annual rate of 15% for 5 years. So the loan is compounded. Now these are the things that you are supposed to check first. The time the loan is compounded. So here they are saying the loan is compounded what? Annually, right? So the loan is compounded annually. Okay, we have it here with an annual rate of what? 15%. So the annual rate of what? 15% for 5 years. Here we are looking for periodic rate. So the years, we don't need them. Okay, we are only interested in the compounded what period and the rates. Okay, don't forget I said it is R over your M. Okay, R over M. So this is what we are interested in. For the years, we will ignore it for now. Okay, so find the periodic rates. Now, when the question is given, just look out for this. The time the loan is compounded is annual, and the rate is also what? Annual rate. It means this is the interpretation. The loan is compounded annually. It means for the whole year, we are going to compound or we are going to calculate for the interest on the loan just once. Okay. And they have given us the annual rate, which means the whole year, the rate for the whole year is what? 15%. So if you are going to calculate it once and you have been given what? The rate for the whole year, then it means it is what? Balanced, right? So if it is balanced, if you see annually here and annual here, it means the periodic rate is the rate in the question. Okay. So here the answer for this is what? The 15% itself. The 15% is the periodic rate. So it means every year, when we are compounding the loan every year, we are supposed to use this yearly rate, which is 15%. Okay, then let's look at another question. Calculate the periodic rate of a loan that earns 16% a year and is compounded every 6 months. So periodic rate of a loan that earns 16% a year. So we have 16% annually. Okay, this is the rate, 16% annually, and the loan is compounded what? Every 6 months. So compounded every 6 months. Okay, so the loan is compounded every 6 months, and you have been given what? An annual rate. When I was talking about the periodic rate, what did I say? Now they are saying they are going to calculate for the interest for the first 6 months, then they will calculate for the interest for another 6 months. That is what? Semi-annually. That is every 6 months. So if you want to calculate for the loan for the first 6 months, you have to get a rate for the 6 months. You don't have to get a rate for the whole year. You need a rate for the 6 months. If you are calculating the loan in a year, the whole year, you need a rate for the whole year. If you are calculating it for 6 months, you need a rate for 6 months. So here, since you are calculating the interest for 6 months, the rate is annually, so this rate is in a whole year. What do we do? 6 months means twice a year, right? So we are going to divide this 16% by 2. Now we have what? 8%. So this 8% is for the first 6 months, and you use the other 8% for what? The next what? 6 months. I hope that is good. Okay, so first look out for the rate. Is the rate annually, and the number of times they are compounded it, is it also annually? If it is annually, then you maintain the rate because it is balanced. If you are giving a rate of, let's say, a rate semi-annual rate, so if the rate is semi-annual and they are compounding the loan semi-annual, it means it is balanced, semi-annual. So you have to just leave it. You have to just use the rate in the question as your periodic rate. But a situation whereby you have been given annual rate and the loan is compounded every 6 months, it means you have to get what? 6 months rate, and that is when you divide it by 2. Okay, Then let's look at this one. Calculate the periodic rate of a loan that earns an interest rate of 10% quarterly, compounded every 3 months. So the interest rate is what? 10%. Periodic rate of a loan that earns an interest rate of 10% quarterly. So 10% quarterly. It means the rate has been given what? Every 3 months. So this 10% will be for 3 months, first 3 months, the 10% the next 3 months, the next 3 months, the next 3 months. So you complete the whole year. Okay. So this is the quarterly rate. Now they said the loan is compounded what? Every 3 months. So compounded every 3 months. Okay, the loan is compounded every 3 months. So if so, then what do you do? What do you do? Here you have quarterly. Every 3 months is the same as quarterly. Do you get it? I wrote it here. Every 3 months is the same as quarterly. Quarterly means the whole year we have divided it by 4. Every 3 months means the whole year we have divided it by 4 because we have 3 months, 4 of 3 months in a year. Okay, so since you have quarterly, you maintain the rate here as your periodic rate. So here your periodic rate for this question is the same rate in the question. That is the 10%. You are not going to divide it by anything. So if it is quarterly, you maintain it. Annually, you maintain it. Semi-annually, you maintain it. But then if it is annually, semi-annually, you see, it's just they are different. Okay, so what you do is you just look out for the number of times you are compounding the loan in a year, then you divide it by the annual rate to get the periodic rates. Okay, so that is how we calculate for a periodic rate. We are now going to solve a question, and I'll give you one to solve, then we move on. So for the first question, like this, the first question we have on our screens like this. It says an individual would like to determine their ending balance after 1 year on an account that earns 5% per month. So 5% per month, it means monthly, right? Okay. And it's compounded monthly. So the rate is monthly. And the loan is also compounded what? The loan is also compounded monthly. So you can see there is monthly. So here what do? You maintain the rate. You are not going to divide this by anything. So here your periodic rate is what? 5%. Periodic rate here becomes 5%. So it means we are going to use 5% in our calculations. Okay. So the original balance on the account is 1,000 Ghana, $1,000. So it means our principal, that is the original amount, is what? $1,000. Okay. And they said after a year, right? So after 1 year, so it means the year is going to be what? The year is just one. So our time, the year is just one. And because it is compounded monthly, we are going to get what? 12 months. 12 months. Is that good? So when you are calculating for the interest, it becomes what? Your principal times rate times time. Sorry, we are looking for the future value rather. So we say for the future value, it is equal to your principal multiplying your future value factor. So this is what we call the future value factor. So your future value is equal to your present value, which is $1,000, $1,000 multiplying 1 plus the rate 5%, so 0.05, and your n here is the number of times, so your n is what? 12. The number of times you are going to compound the loan is 12. So you just solve for this and you provide me with the answer. But then I'll give you one question to try. Let's look at this question and I'll give you one to try and say bye bye to compound interest. Okay, so here you just calculate for this. You are going to get FV equal to 1000, then you have 1.05 exponent 12. Okay, so you input this in the calculator, then you provide me the answer for the future value. Okay, as simple as that. So let's look at the same or similar question. An individual would like to determine their ending balance after 1 year on account that earns 15% semi-annually and is compounded after every 6 months. So the rate is what, semi-annual, and the loan is compounded every 6 months. Every 6 months is the same as semi-annual. So semi-annual, semi-annual. It means we are not going to do anything to the rate. We are just going to maintain the rate. Okay, the 15%. Then we use the how do we call it? The principal to be 1,000. Then the months to be how many? How many months? So we have 6 months here, 6 months here. So the n is going to be 2, okay? Because n represents the number of times you are going to compound the loan in the year. So if it is every 6 months, it means you are going to compound it twice. Your n is equal to 2. Is that good? So for this second question like this, let's just write. Let me just give you the structure. On account that earns 15% semi-annually. So, and the loan is compounded semi-annual. So we are not going to do anything to the rate. We have, so your future value is equal to your present value, which is $1,000, 1 plus the 15% given, which is 0.15. Exponent what? The n is what? The number of times you are compounding it in a year. So how many times are they compounding it? For the first example, they were compounding it what? Monthly. That is why we said what? 12 times in a year. But then here they are compounding it what? Semi-annually, 2 times in a year. So we just bring 2 here. Okay. So you have future value equals $1,000 into brackets 1.15, then exponent 2. You input this in the calculator, then you provide the final answer. Okay. So I will leave this question for you to try. Then you give me the answer at the comment section. So the question is on your screen. Kindly solve it and give me the answer at the comment section. Okay. So this is where we end our topic for today. That is compound interest. Once again, my name is Safari Ernest, and kindly subscribe, like, and share to your friends so that they all benefit from these tutorials. Okay. I'll see you the next time. Bye bye.